Thank you. It's great to be back here. I was presenting, I think, 3 years ago last time, and that was a great experience. Unfortunately, I don't understand enough French, but I think I've gotten actually a lot of insights today by just looking at the beautiful images and hearing the reactions. So actually, I hope that my presentation builds really nicely upon some of the other work. So what I will cover quickly is why I'm here, the mobile revolution, why we need to reinvent and not just mobilize things, predicting disruption and technology and how hard it is, understanding the problems that we're solving before we start solving them, how we test them, and a couple of examples of this throughout. And overall, in 15 minutes approximately, give you an idea of how to reinvent businesses, products, and services in the mobile world. So first of all, you said before, I'm Swedish. I'm originally an engineer. I think I was doing programming when I was about 10. And I've had the pleasure of setting up about 9 companies to date. 3 of them have been successful, 3 complete failures. And 3 are still ongoing, so we don't know yet. And actually, failing is really, really important in everything that we do. And you'll see this in the presentation as well, even though it sucks. And today, I'm actually Chief Innovation Officer of DMI as of the 1st of January. So my job is to go around and talk to people and learn more and teach. And I'm also going to teach at CREA in Geneva this spring a couple of times. And finally, the company that I represent, DMI, we're one of the first end-to-end mobility companies in the world, and we help Fortune 500 companies across the world, a lot of big brands like Coca-Cola and McDonald's and so on, as well as governments, including the previous president of the United States, to reinvent themselves in the mobile world. So first, mobile revolution, and we've been talking about it this morning. Everybody's getting connected all the time, and it's really changing everything. And it also means that end users, you and me, and whether we're in a store, on an airplane, wherever we are, we're constantly connected and we're in control of things. And the same thing goes for the employees. As like we're out in the field or we're in the office, it doesn't really matter. We're always connected, and there's a lot of things that we can do as employees to help transform the customer experience. But this is what most organizations do today. We take what we have in the physical world. So let's I'll give you IKEA as an example. They look, okay, we have stores, these big blue boxes, and we want to sell furniture online. So let's just copy what we have in the store and make it a little bit similar with a product catalog. And then we launch that, and we can sell through that. And you can do that. It's not a really big problem, but it doesn't actually give you the benefits of mobility. To mobilize what you have. And what we see is businesses that do this, they're not very successful long term. What we really need to do is reinvention or digital transformation. And what digital transformation means is not installing an ERP system in a company or saying that you do lots of digital stuff. It is really it's not simply enhancing the traditional, but really reinventing everything around what we do. And I'll give you some examples of this. Bombardier, one of the biggest train manufacturers in the world, so they felt, oh, we need to go mobile. So what's the first thing you do when you go mobile? You say, let's do an app. That's great. Let's give people the opportunity to see which seats are available on the train or where to stand on the platform. So that was kind of so we got a long list of features saying these are the things that we want in our app. And if any one of you have been taking trains in London for a long period of time, commuting, then you know that an app is probably not going to solve the problems that we have, which is the trains never ever show up on time. So we actually asked them to go back and talk to their customers, to spend time on the trains, on the platforms, to really be out there and think about what customers really needed. And instead, what the customers told them was, no, you need to find a solution for this. Either at least tell us when the train is not going to be on time so we can find another, or tell us what the alternative path is. There's a lot of other things. So actually what the customers told them and the things that they could do in this mobile world was completely different than what their expectations were. And now they're creating a whole new business model based on that in business. So it's time to reinvent business in the mobile world, and that means products and services. But this can be extremely challenging. And And it's because customer expectations are really, really high up there. Like, we expect things to be fast, we expect them to change all the time, we expect them to be personalized, we expect businesses to know who we are. And as well, the technology constantly changes, which is probably why the formatting on this slide jumped off a little bit, but it says. And then, in addition to that, so with technology, I mean, like, there's constantly new versions of iPhones, new iOS releases, new phones, new technologies. And then in addition to that, you have disruption from competitors and startups. So all of this means that we need a new approach. And disruption is really happening across every single industry. So there's no industry today that is not being impacted. Some are obviously faster than others. So if we give some examples here on the left. So these are some of the industries and companies that were disrupted and realized it too late. How many of you have used Yellow Pages in the last year? Yeah, not that many. So that was a bit too late. Yellow cabs, so actually most of the taxi companies have gone, traditional taxi companies have gone from completely dominating monopolies to now being like underneath or struggling to survive, and then we have Kodak and others. So these are examples of companies that came into it too late or changed it the wrong way. But then we also have companies that actually disrupted too early. So being first is not necessarily always the best thing. So examples of this is Google Glass, which obviously nobody's using anymore. Or Newton, which was the first kind of iPhone by Apple, or Google Wallet, which was one of the first payment solutions. And one of the reasons for this is that it's really hard to forecast when a technology is going to take off from a consumer point of view. So typically, like when we forecast things, we draw these linear curves, or we draw very fast hockey sticks. But in reality, what normally happens is that technology adoption takes a lot longer than what we forecast, but when it happens, it goes really, really fast. So it means that you have to be ready. So, and an example of this, actually really, really bad example maybe, is this is the first selfie stick from 1985. The guy up there, he got 2 cameras stolen when he was out traveling, so he figured that this was the only way that he could keep his camera without being stolen. So he invented a selfie stick. He was working at Panasonic. I think he sold about 500 of them or something like that. He had a patent that ran out in 2005. And I think sometime after that, obviously, it took off. I was working at Vodafone around 2005 when we launched 3G, and we were working actually with Swisscom in Switzerland as well, and we launched TV, and I think we spent $100 or $200 million on it, a lot of money. Because the research that we did was people want to watch TV on their phones. But when in reality what happened was, out of the, 10 million 3G customers during the first year, it was about 500,000 that really used it. And part of the reason was that the phones were burning up when you were using them because they got so hot with the 3G signals. But obviously today, everybody's consuming video and music, so it wasn't the idea that was wrong. They were actually just too early. And it was very costly being too early. Mobile payments is at a similar stage, so Apple, Google, and lots of other companies have invested hundreds of millions into mobile payments. But right now, we're still not seeing the take-up there yet. And except for a few countries like Sweden and Denmark and maybe Switzerland at some point, let's see. But the main problem here is that in most cases, we still haven't made it a better experience than what credit cards or debit cards are. So the hardest problem isn't actually technical. Even if we can solve the technical problem, it doesn't mean that it's going to be successful. The real challenge is understanding the users, which means that if we want to be successful, then we first have to understand the problem. And the way that we do this, or most companies do it, is that you start with the user up here on the left. You ask them lots and lots of questions, and you come up with potentially like hundreds of things that you could solve for them. So on the trains where it was better parking at the train stations, tell me when it shows up, cover me when it rains, or whatever. So you collect all of these things, and then you try to narrow it down to the really big problems that you can solve for them. And once you figure out the problems, then you start looking at potential solutions. And once again, it could be hundreds of solutions. And you test and test and test, finally until you figure out what it is. And you prototype it. And this is when you start developing things. So Post-its is a very important part of this. And one way of doing this, to really understand this journey, and this, like going back to the train case again, is really going through the whole customer journey of a customer. In this case, it's actually a hotel, so it's from from planning your hotel visit, to booking it, to traveling, the check-in, the dinner, and whatever else you want to do during that. And throughout all of these, you can see actually the curves on the top are showing positive things on the top and negative experience at the bottom. So check-in, for example, is normally a very negative experience because all we want is to get into our room or into the pool. And to give you an example actually of how this can impact the company positively, so Addison Lee, which was the biggest black cap company in London before Uber showed up, about 4 or 5 years ago. Actually what we've seen in most countries where Uber has shown up, the best or the only way that the local taxi companies have fought back is through regulations. They've just told the politicians this is unfair, this company is not playing by the rules, stop them. Addison Lee actually realized we're not going to be able to do this. So instead, they went back to their customers and tried to figure out things that would really matter to them. And instead of just copying the Uber app, which is really, really difficult because Uber has thousands of resources and they have billions of dollars. So if you're going to compare on like for like, you're probably not going to be successful. So they went back to all of their customers and figured out what was important to them. And in some cases, a lot of their customers are enterprise customers, so it's about making it easier to book them and the timings and so on. But actually one small thing that they figured out was that when people were in the pub, because Londoners spend a lot of time in the pub, sometimes they figured, okay, I ordered a taxi, but actually I want another pint. And the way that they would do it was canceling, or they would feel really stressed, I have to go out and take my taxi. So instead they introduced a snooze button, so you just clicked on the snooze button, and then it gave you can say, okay, I want my taxi to come in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, depending on your beer time, and then you kept on snoozing. And this worked really well, actually, both for them and for the customers. So that's a small example of customer insights. But once you've figured it out, as I said before, it's very expensive to implement a lot of these things if they're going to fail. And actually, most of the time, they do actually fail. So in reality, something like 35 or 38 to 95% of all new products and services fail. Depending on, in some cases, it's a little bit less, and in other cases, it's much higher. And the cost of change. So, for example, if you look here, the Post-its, they're very cheap to just throw away. Okay, it didn't work, the customer didn't like it. The prototype, you can sometimes create 5 prototypes in a day. Once again, they're really, really cheap to throw away. But once you're getting into coding, once you spend 5 months, 6 months on developing something, it's very expensive to change or throw away. So this is really why the prototyping is so important. And with Vodafone, for example, we actually think in retrospect they probably could have just tested this mobile TV service on a couple of 3G devices, and they would have found out immediately that this was not going to be a successful service at the time, or their music service, and they could have saved hundreds of millions of dollars, or spent them on something else that would have worked. Another example of this is JSK, or previously Novartis. So they actually figured out one of the challenges for the pharma industry today is moving from products to services. So it's like if you take migraine pills, for example, they don't necessarily work actually that well all the time. And once you've taken, or by the time that you need to take a migraine pill, you already have a headache or a migraine. So in reality, it's actually too late. So what they started looking at was how can we predict when someone is going to get a migraine and thereby be proactive and say take it before you get it, which means that you're never going to get it. And we looked at lots of different technologies. Here's a small patch that measures the hydration in your skin. And we could actually test and prototype this in a matter of 1 to 2 months and realize that yes, it's fantastic, but the technology is not there yet. So now they know what would work, but it's probably going to take another 2 to 3 years before it actually goes into market. And this is one of the key things today as well in developing products in a mobile world. It's not always that we throw them out and test them with consumer and go all the way. A lot of the time we just prototype, test, and maybe they have to test 100 different alternatives to this before they find the right one. But as long as you can keep that cost down, that's okay. It's okay to fail if you do it these ways, but it's not okay to fail when you do these monstrous programs. And actually, one of the companies in the world that is best at this, and we don't see this in a lot of big companies, but Amazon is really, really good at it. They just keep on testing, failing. And I think Jeff Bezos actually said in the last annual report, he said, we are probably one of the best companies in the world at failing. And there's not many executives that would say that, actually. And one of the ways that they do it is that they say a team cannot be larger, or an innovation team cannot be larger than that they can be fed by, I think it's by one pizza or something like that, at least temporarily for lunch. It must be big. I think it's very big pizzas in the US, actually. But anyway. And Amazon Go is an example of this, which they've been developing and testing for the last couple of years, and finally launched this year with these like super high innovation stores. So, quickly in summary, like I said, all industries are being disrupted right now by mobility and digital and so on, so be prepared for it. But when you start transforming into the mobile space, don't just mobilize or digitalize it, really reinvent it, reimagine what your business, what your product, what your service can look like in a mobile world. Understand and verify the problems before you start jumping to solutions, because we love jumping to solutions, but really make sure that you dig into the problem first. And then once you figured out what the problem is, then start testing the different solutions and prototype and test and test and test, and be prepared to fail. And that's it. And finally, if you're interested in more around what's happening in the mobility industry, then we recently posted the top mobility trends for 2017, available on SlideShare absolutely for free. Just search for mobile trends. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Magnus. Really, you underlined the real importance of the mobile and the opportunities also linked to the mobile. Anyone has a question for Magnus?
Hello, Magnus. Very interested about your presentation. I was just curious because this is for large-scale companies, but as an independent or small business, we don't have the means to spend that time doing the research and testing and vice versa. So what would be your advice to kind of manage the best we can with the means we have to get to that stage, I guess?
I think you can, actually. I also do startups. So actually, I practice like I preach. And like if you look on a micro scale for a startup, it's not about doing, like maybe you can't interview thousands of customers. Instead, you spend time with 5 customers. And maybe you do it in a day instead. But actually what too many entrepreneurs do is that we're really afraid of showing our products until they're ready. So too many startups spend 6 months developing something before they show it to the public. And once again, like the sooner you get it out there, the first prototype that's ready, just show it to people. And don't share it with your friends because they're just going to be nice to you. Share it to the people that are not going to be nice to you.
Thank you for your interesting points regarding do not reinvent, do not mobilize, reinvent. My question actually is, once you reinvent, do you need to desktopize? Meaning that, would you not worry about having 2 different versions, 2 different user experiences between the mobile and your other devices?
Yeah, so you need consistency, but it doesn't actually mean that it needs to be the same. If you think, actually some companies, they have a mobile-only experience even. If you think like Instagram, they started with mobile-only, Snapchat started with mobile-only, and that's acceptable to us. And once they moved across other platforms, their PC or their computer experience is actually more limited than their mobile experience, so it's kind of the vice versa. So I think that's absolutely okay, as long as you're really serving the customer's needs, as long as you're delivering the customer experience that we expect. But yeah, you need to communicate why. And like, I had an example a long time ago, which was H&M didn't allow customers to buy products on mobile, but they did on the computer, and customers just didn't understand it. Like, what's the purpose of that? But by telling the customers, which they then did, which was, we're not ready yet, then people accepted it.
Okay, thank you. There is a question on this side.
Hi. Thank you for presentation. My question is that everyone is talking about user experience these days, but where do you actually find your users? Like if you're a big company and you already have a product, you already have your users. But if you're a startup or a small company, where do you find them to make the test?
Oh yeah. So that's where companies like Facebook and Google and Pinterest and Instagram and others and Adobe and others come in because you actually do. I mean, I would say there's part of it that you can do by being creative and innovative and creating good social content, but in reality, you still need to market products. To scale, we need to spend money on marketing. Most companies do. There's some lucky ones that just grow out of proportion, but in reality, most successful companies in any industry, and they spend a lot of money on marketing. And you need smart and creative marketeers that really understand the digital space to do that.
Okay, another question. Last one.
Yes, hi. Speaking about the disruptive rhythms, do you think that we will, or we have already gotten to a point where the market may not be able to absorb this rapid rhythm, and that may be either a saturation or a need to calm down until we pick up again?
Yeah, that's interesting with all of these. I don't, unfortunately. I don't know if it's enough. Of course, there's trends that say, okay, we want to shut things off. I'm sure there's going to be a huge trend over the coming years with people that go away over weekends and places where you have no phones, where you have no connectivity, because we actually need to turn off. Our brains probably can't handle all of this information all the time. But it's not going to slow down in any way in the world around us. So we're going to have to choose not to interact with things, just like we can choose not to be on Facebook all the time or being on all of these channels. So I think we're going to have to control ourselves a lot better in the future. And you saw the presentation this morning, which with about the development of robots and artificial intelligence and so on. It's just going faster and faster and faster.
Okay, so thank you very much, Magnus.